The landscape of Canada's real estate market has begun to unravel in a way that no one could have predicted, and it is sending shockwaves through homeowners, investors, and developers alike. Strata bankruptcies are sweeping across the country, and the toll is devastating. Special levies, some as high as $180,000, are being imposed on homeowners, and many are facing the unbearable decision of either paying these astronomical amounts or losing their homes altogether. What was once seen as a reliable form of property ownership, a cornerstone of Canadian real estate, is now crumbling under the weight of mismanagement, sky-high construction costs, and a growing mountain of debt. This crisis has its roots deeply embedded in the issues that have plagued Canada's real estate market for years, but no one could have foreseen just how quickly things would escalate. Strata corporations, once symbols of affordable urban living, are now at the center of a financial disaster. The mounting costs of maintaining buildings, combined with poorly planned budgets, have led to the bankruptcy of several prominent strata corporations. The consequences have been nothing short of catastrophic. In cities like Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal, thousands of homeowners are waking up to the harsh reality that their investment is no longer secure. Strata bankruptcies are not a new concept, but they are occurring on a scale that is unprecedented. The first wave of bankruptcies started quietly enough, with a few smaller strata corporations in Vancouver filing for insolvency. At first, these were seen as isolated incidents, unfortunate, but not indicative of a larger problem. However, it soon became apparent that the issue was much more widespread. The number of bankruptcies began to grow, and homeowners started to see special levies of tens of thousands of dollars being imposed on them to cover the debt left behind by these failed corporations. For many homeowners, this was the beginning of a financial nightmare. These levies were not small amounts. They were, in many cases, in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. One of the most shocking aspects of this crisis has been the sheer size of these levies, with some homeowners being asked to pay as much as $180,000 just to keep their homes. This is an amount that most people simply cannot afford, and the emotional and financial toll has been immense. Homeowners are now facing the possibility of losing everything, their hard-earned savings and their homes, all because of decisions made by strata corporations that were out of their control. The levies are not just a one-time cost either. They are part of a larger pattern that is only getting worse. As more strata corporations fall into bankruptcy, more levies are being imposed, and the financial burden on homeowners is becoming unbearable. In some cases, homeowners are being forced to take out loans or sell personal assets just to cover the costs. The fear of losing everything is palpable, and the stress is overwhelming. This wave of bankruptcies is not just affecting homeowners. Developers, who once relied on the success of strata projects, are now pulling out of developments altogether. The construction industry, which has already been grappling with rising costs and supply chain disruptions, is now facing even more instability. The once promising future of urban development is now uncertain, with many projects being left unfinished or abandoned. The result is a growing number of vacant units, exacerbating the housing crisis in cities like Vancouver and Toronto. The impact of these bankruptcies is being felt across the entire real estate market. As homeowners struggle to pay their levies and developers back out of projects, the supply of new housing is dwindling. This is putting further pressure on an already strained market, where demand for affordable housing far outstrips supply. The result is an even more inflated housing market, with prices continuing to rise despite the economic turmoil. Those who were once hopeful about entering the market are now finding themselves priced out, while existing homeowners are facing an uncertain future. The broader economic implications of this crisis cannot be overstated. Strata bankruptcies are not just a real estate issue, they are an economic issue that affects the entire country. As homeowners are forced to pay massive levies, their disposable income is shrinking, and their ability to spend on goods and services is diminishing. This is having a ripple effect on the economy, with consumer confidence plummeting and businesses struggling to cope with reduced spending. The housing market, which has long been a key driver of Canada's economy, is now in a state of freefall, and the impact is being felt across industries. At the same time, the government's response to this crisis has been largely ineffective. While some relief measures have been proposed, they have not been enough to address the scale of the problem. Many homeowners feel abandoned by the very institutions that are supposed to protect them. The government has promised to step in and provide support, but the reality is that these promises have largely gone unmet. Strata owners, who were once promised a stable and secure form of property ownership, are now left to deal with the fallout of this crisis on their own. In Vancouver, the number of strata bankruptcies is expected to rise dramatically in the coming months. As more strata corporations fall into insolvency, the pressure on homeowners will only intensify. Many are predicting that the special levies will continue to climb and that the financial burden on homeowners will become even more crushing. The government has promised to step in and help, but with the scale of the problem growing every day, it remains to be seen whether they can offer meaningful support before it's too late. For those living in strata developments, the situation is dire. Many are finding themselves unable to afford the levies that have been imposed upon them, and some are being forced to sell their homes just to stay afloat. This has led to a sharp increase in the number of foreclosures, as more and more homeowners are unable to make the payments required to keep their homes. The rise in foreclosures is putting additional pressure on an already overwhelmed housing market, driving up prices and making it even harder for new buyers to enter the market. The human cost of this crisis is staggering. Families who once thought they were secure in their homes are now facing the prospect of losing everything. The emotional toll of dealing with these massive levies, coupled with the uncertainty of what the future holds, is overwhelming. For many, it feels like a financial death sentence. The strain on mental health is significant, with many homeowners reporting high levels of stress, anxiety, and depression. The future, once so bright, now feels uncertain and bleak. At the same time, the wider Canadian economy is also feeling the effects of this crisis. The collapse of strata corporations and the imposition of special levies are creating instability in the financial markets, as investors grow wary of the real estate sector. The stock market is reacting to the growing uncertainty, and many are pulling their investments out of Canadian real estate altogether. The ripple effect is spreading, and the longer this crisis goes unchecked, the greater the economic damage will be. As the situation continues to unfold, it's clear that this is just the beginning of what could be a far-reaching and long-lasting crisis. The real threat is still ahead of us, and the ramifications of this crisis will be felt for years to come. Homeownership, once seen as the cornerstone of financial security in Canada, is now under threat, and the future of the housing market is uncertain at best. For those caught in the middle of this crisis, the outlook is grim. Many homeowners are struggling to make ends meet, and the fear of losing everything is a constant presence. As the crisis deepens, it's becoming clear that the solutions being offered are not enough to address the scale of the problem. The real threat is that this crisis could spiral out of control, causing irreparable damage to Canada's housing market and economy. While there is still hope that the government can step in and offer meaningful relief, the reality is that time is running out. The longer the government waits to act, the more damage will be done. Homeowners are losing faith in the system, and the longer this crisis persists, the more difficult it will be to reverse the damage. This is a critical moment in Canadian real estate, and the decisions made in the coming months will determine the future of homeownership in this country. As the financial turmoil continues to unfold, the strain on Canada's real estate market deepens, and the looming consequences of these strata bankruptcies become impossible to ignore. Every day, more homeowners are left to pick up the pieces, and the reality is that their options are running out. In cities like Vancouver, Toronto, and Montreal, the ever-growing threat of special levies pushing $180,000 is becoming a crisis that not only affects individual families, but threatens the entire economic foundation of the country. Many have speculated that these levies could continue to rise as more strata corporations face bankruptcy. The numbers are already staggering, and as these bankruptcies increase in frequency, homeowners are confronted with a harsh reality: pay up or lose everything. But for those who can't afford these astronomical costs, the only option is to sell their homes, which, as you can imagine, puts enormous pressure on the housing market. As more people are forced to sell, the supply of available units increases, but so does the number of foreclosures. This snowball effect only worsens the market's collapse, leading to even greater volatility. It's a cycle that seems impossible to break. The distress among homeowners is palpable. Imagine spending years, if not decades, paying off a home thinking you've finally reached financial stability, only to be told that your home is now worth less than the sum you owe in levies. Many homeowners are being forced into positions they never could have anticipated. Some are struggling to pay these levies by sacrificing savings, taking out loans, or selling valuable assets. One Vancouver homeowner, who asked to remain anonymous, shared how they sold their car and even took out a second mortgage, only to realize that the special levy was too large to cover with just those efforts. In the end, they faced the daunting prospect of losing their home, despite all their sacrifices. The emotional toll this crisis has placed on families cannot be overstated. Beyond the financial burden, there is a deep sense of betrayal. Many homeowners feel as though they were misled about the security of strata ownership. What was once seen as a safe investment has turned into an emotional and financial nightmare. For many, it's not just about the money, it's about losing the dream of homeownership, the place they thought they would build a future and a life of stability. The human cost is staggering, but it extends far beyond the individual level. The systemic failure that led to this crisis will have long-term consequences for the broader Canadian economy. As consumer confidence plummets, businesses struggle, and investors pull out of the real estate market, the ripple effect grows. The once booming real estate industry is now facing a moment of reckoning, and the fallout from this crisis will reverberate for years. Many analysts predict that this could be the beginning of a larger economic decline that will affect everything from job markets to the supply chain, potentially causing a nationwide recession. It's not just the homeowners who are feeling the strain. Developers, too, are beginning to feel the pressure as their projects stall or come to a halt altogether. Rising construction costs, exacerbated by material shortages, combined with increasing uncertainty, have led to widespread cancellations of new developments. The abandonment of these projects is a direct consequence of the ongoing instability, and it's forcing developers to reevaluate their long-term plans. In some cases, entire neighborhoods are being left incomplete as developers walk away from projects. This adds even more pressure to an already overtaxed housing market, which was already struggling to meet demand. Vancouver's skyline, which had been growing rapidly over the last decade, now features more and more empty and unfinished buildings, serving as a testament to a once promising future that has been abandoned. At the same time, the government's response to the crisis has been far from sufficient. While politicians have promised to provide relief to homeowners, the measures taken so far have done little to alleviate the immediate pain felt by those most affected. The government's piecemeal solutions are simply not enough to address the scale of the problem. There has been no coordinated effort to protect homeowners from these crippling levies, nor has there been a clear plan to stabilize the market. Homeowners who are already overwhelmed by the financial burden are now forced to navigate a complicated, bureaucratic system that offers little hope for real relief. In response to these failures, many homeowners are beginning to take matters into their own hands. Some are banding together to form advocacy groups to lobby for better protections and more support from the government. Others are taking legal action, fighting back against the levies, and attempting to protect their homes. However, for many, these efforts are simply not enough to stop the tidal wave of financial ruin that is bearing down on them. As the crisis deepens, it's clear that the implications go beyond just the real estate market. What we are witnessing is a systemic collapse of a housing model that was once seen as a bedrock of Canadian financial stability. The idea of homeownership as an achievable goal is quickly becoming a distant dream for many Canadians, especially younger generations. Millennials and Generation Z, already facing mounting student loan debt and rising living costs, are now staring down the possibility that homeownership may be out of reach altogether. With the financial system in crisis and the real estate market in freefall, it's easy to see how this could lead to a wider societal breakdown. As more people lose their homes and the housing crisis intensifies, we risk seeing a complete erosion of the Canadian middle class. The wealth gap between homeowners and renters will continue to widen, and entire communities will be left without the financial means to thrive. As the divide between the haves and have-nots grows, so too will the social tensions that come with it. The future of homeownership in Canada is at a tipping point, and the consequences of this crisis are far-reaching. The once proud dream of owning a home is slipping further and further away for many Canadians, and the fallout from these bankruptcies will shape the country's economic and social landscape for decades to come. If the government does not step in quickly to provide real, effective solutions, we may be facing a new reality, one where the dream of homeownership becomes an unattainable fantasy for the majority of Canadians. Looking ahead, the biggest question remains, what comes next? If the trend of strata bankruptcies continues, we could see even more levies imposed, more bankruptcies, and more homeowners losing everything. The housing market, already teetering on the edge, could face a full collapse. The ripple effect could spread throughout Canada's economy, devastating not just homeowners, but renters, businesses, and communities. This is the harsh reality of a crisis that is only just beginning. But the story isn't over yet. There are still opportunities for recovery, and there are still ways to address the root causes of this disaster. However, those solutions will require bold action from both the government and the private sector. If those in power fail to act quickly and decisively, the damage may be irreparable. Now, more than ever, it's crucial for Canadians to stay informed and prepared for what lies ahead. The crisis we're witnessing is just the beginning, and the real challenge will be navigating the fallout in the months and years to come. If you think this crisis doesn't affect you, think again. The fallout from the Strata bankruptcies is only beginning to hit full force. Don't wait until it's too late. Leave a comment saying 1 if you want to stay updated on the latest developments in this ongoing disaster. Subscribe to the channel to get more insights on how this crisis could shape your financial future. You won't want to miss what's coming next.